There were many issues in the negotiation, but I will highlight 3 for you today. Under the terms of other agreements, governments on both sides select the companies that will do business under the Memorandum of Understanding. And Chinese travel agencies apply for visas on behalf of members of the groups that are traveling. And these were issues for us because, as I mentioned, the United States government does not regulate the industry, and we are not in the business of selecting some U.S. companies over other U.S. companies. Furthermore, U.S. law requires that individuals applying for visas are personally interviewed and that their biometrics, i.e. their fingerprints, are captured at the time of interview. And this facilitates the process of matching and authenticating documents to individuals to ensure that the individuals that are traveling are in fact the individuals that received the visa. Therefore, we could not have a travel agency acting as an intermediary for the visa process. And finally, as I mentioned, there were significant concerns that the MOU would add to the United States challenges in repatriation. Now, with respect to approving tour operators, the Chinese had some concerns. Under Chinese regulations governing outbound travel, there are a number of requirements of travel agencies that are organizing outbound travel from China to the United States. For example, under their regulations, those travel agencies must only work with approved inbound tour operators. They must ensure that the individuals depart China as a group and return to China as a group. They must ensure that there is a tour guide and that tour guide is Mandarin speaking. They must ensure that they report any individual that may be missing from the group during the time that they are traveling in the host country. The Chinese insisted on a way that the United States could establish a mechanism to qualify inbound tour operators to meet the needs of their travel agencies and to partner with their travel agencies under their legal framework on the regulations governing outbound travel. So we were left then with this question: how to address those issues without government intervention? What the United States needed was a private sector solution. And so what the Department of Commerce did was to reach out to industry associations that are broadly representative of the travel industry, particularly inbound tour operators, across the country, organizations that have a history in self-regulation, and we explained the issue to the private sector. We also published a notice within the Federal Register looking for a solution to this problem. The Chinese agreed that they would accept lists that were generated by the private sector under programs or schemes that were administered by the private sector, which is a departure, as I mentioned, from their other agreements. And this was, I will say, a major breakthrough for us, because I think it would have been very challenging, if not impossible, to have achieved this agreement without the cooperation of the private sector in this regard. The National Tour Association stepped up and agreed that they would establish a program to qualify inbound tour operators under the MOU. And to date, they are the only organization that has such a program in place. This may change over time, but we are delighted to be able to work with the National Tour Association under the MOU, and I think that the industry owes their leadership a great deal of gratitude. Now, on the subject of facilitating visas, we reached out to the Department of State, and I must say we also owe the Department of State a tremendous amount of appreciation. The Department of State came to the table, and we worked out a solution with the China National Tourism Administration found acceptable. And that was, while we could not have their travel agencies acting as intermediaries for individuals who were applying for visas, as they do in other countries, what the State Department agreed to do was to create a separate track, an appointment track, for CNTA-approved travel agencies to make appointments so that those individuals who are traveling in groups can sequentially apply for their visas. So the State Department is standing up this proposal as we speak, and under this they will be essentially facilitating the process with Chinese travel agencies on the visa process. And I think this will be of great assistance both to those travel agencies in meeting their obligations under Chinese regulations governing outbound travel, but also will help facilitate those groups and make the appointment process much easier. As we worked with the State Department, they came to see that by having travel agencies involved in this, the travel agencies could actually partner with them to ensure that when individuals show up for their visa appointments, that their paperwork is filled out properly and save actually a lot of time. So it comes, out as these things often do when you sit down and talk about them, to be a win-win situation. And on the third issue, the Chinese did agree to a provision that will allow the United States, or either side, to cancel the agreement. And on our side, I think they are clear that we are prepared to do so in the case that this should result in an unacceptable number of overstays. We are optimistic that this will not be the case. I feel very confident that this MOU will be a great benefit to both countries. And so happily we were able to resolve all of these issues and others. And the agreement was finally signed by the Secretary of Commerce and the Chairman of the China National Tourism Administration at the Joint Commission of Commerce and Trade and Security and Strategic Economic Dialogue meeting in Beijing in December of last year. And that meant that we were almost home, because under the Chinese system there are actually 3 phases to this process. In the first phase, we have a formal agreement to negotiate. In the second phase, we come to the actual understanding of the framework. And in the third phase, we establish the implementation procedures for travel to begin. The MOU will be implemented in phases. It will begin with 9 provinces in China, and other provinces will be added most probably by the end of the year as the system is tested and improved. On June the 19th, the Secretary of Commerce will welcome the first inaugural tour to Washington under the MOU. It will be led by Chairman Xiao of the China National Tourism Administration, and it will include approximately 300 Chinese visitors, and it will include representatives from the central government in Beijing as well as representatives from the provincial governments. It will include travelers who are coming to experience our country in a group leisure travel under the MOU, and it will include also members of the press who will be documenting this historic tour. So that's all the background on how we got here. The question is, how can you capture the value? How can the private sector capture the value of this MOU? And I'm sure you will hear more about that from the speakers here today. But at a high level, there are things that destinations and companies throughout the Southeast and other areas of the country can do to capture the value of this agreement. And first, we would recommend that you do your research to identify those segments of Chinese travelers that you wish to attract, that you prepare your destinations and services to address both their needs and their interests, and then you market in China, remembering always that a satisfied customer is your best advertisement. Companies also may consider developing strategic alliances to strengthen your presence in the marketplace. And to assist you in developing your strategies, the Office of Travel and Tourism Industries has collaborated with the Alfred Sloan Foundation's Travel and Tourism Center at the University of South Carolina and other industry partners on a study of long-haul travelers from China, using both quantitative and qualitative methods. It's a multi-phase project which we hope will be completed this fall. The preliminary findings of the study are positive. For example, we have found that 13% of the market identifies the United States as a dream destination, making the United States just above France as the #1 dream destination of long-haul travelers from China. And this is based on perceptions and interests that are in fact relevant and valid for the United States. The Travel Industry Association has incorporated some of these early findings in their 2007 report on the China market.